What do we do as an organization? On a regular basis, we observe and report to members on the work of our municipal councils. And as with today's meeting, we often share important work with these councils. We hold regular town hall meetings on key community items, and for many years have presented informational meetings open to the public on issues that are critical to our communities, often on environmental concerns. And in 2026, we will continue our tradition of working with council candidates and holding all candidate meetings in the run-up to October's municipal council election. We have also participated in hearings on various threats to the community. This past year, we've been very active in reviewing and responding to a major aggregate proposal in Melanchthon, close to the Mulmur town line, a project which has raised concerns across the county on water usage, flow of our main rivers, and potential serious air contamination arising from explosives usage. MC Squared operates with a board and a very dedicated group of volunteers, many of whom are here today. Currently, we have a membership of 90 households, reflecting a total membership of approximately 300 citizens. We are always interested in attracting new members to support the important work that we are doing. You'll notice that we have a table in the back of the room with more information on MC Squared. We invite everyone here to join us as members. We are currently in the process of updating our website, a project that will be completed in June and will provide a more detailed information about our current projects and opportunities for volunteer engagement. All right, let's get started with today's agenda. Perhaps first of all, I'll introduce the council members that are here today. We have Councillor Capes, we have Deputy Mayor Nix, we have Mayor Creelman, we have Councillor Mankelo, and Councillor Davey. Thank you all for being here. Our keynote speaker today is Mr. Andrew McCammon. He is Executive Director of the Ontario Headwaters Institute. Following a career that included working as a consultant to or employee of agencies on 4 levels of government in Ontario, federal, provincial, municipal, and a conservation authority, Andrew became the Executive Director of the Ontario Headwaters Institute in 2008. Since joining, Andrew has guided the Institute through a change of focus from headwaters to full watershed management, and more recently, to promoting watershed security. He will share with us today why that happened and provide observations about how it relates to safe and sustainable water for Mono's future. Andrew? That was my error, yes. Councillor Capes? No, you go ahead. Please, go
ahead. Is that on? Ooh, there you go. Good morning, everybody. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Teonatate, Attawandaron, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. And now I give you Andrew. Thank you.
Lectern. Try to not have my backs to anybody. I apologize. And the audience, thank you for coming. This is too much information, but there won't be too much information. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and I had to look at a screen to the side, and I came home with a crick in my neck, and they don't want to hear this. And the next day, I got food poisoning. Now, I will just tell you this. The human body wasn't designed to have a crick in the neck while you're retching, okay? So, thank you so much for the introduction, the land acknowledgement, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I want to thank Steve in particular. He saw a version of some of this a couple of weeks, well, 4 weeks ago now, and stop it. And the projector didn't work. So it was kind of a tap dance between what I wanted to say and, oh, this side was going to tell you. I try not to read my slides. This is a one-year course, university course in watershed management in 20 minutes. So I'm going to try to do a narrative that will open up some issues for you, underscore other issues you're probably familiar with. But the slides, and there's a copy of the complete PowerPoint on the table. And if you want me to email you a digital version, tell me your email address, and I'll send it to you. A lot of the bullets in these slides I could speak to for an hour. We're not going to do that, and there won't be a test. Hopefully I can get this covered in an entertaining fashion in 20 minutes. Okay. So I've always been a water baby. I don't know if anybody else has water babies, but they're the kids that want to stay in the bathtub all the time. And when you take them to the swimming class at the Y, they want to do the length of the pool underwater. They don't want to learn how to crawl. And I've always been interested in water. I love fog. I love rain. I love backcountry canoe tripping and swimming 6 times a day. I've always been interested in water. And then I got somewhat interested in the science, which this covers. But I ended up in the policy wonk side. And so people just don't understand water. Most people, until you get a crisis, like the several that your community is facing with development and arsenic and quality and quantity, suddenly people get interested in water, but we take it for granted. A lot of people don't know where water comes from. Water is life, and it's the defining feature of our planet. Yes, the pictures from the moon showed clouds, but by and large it was a blue bauble with the oceans. But where did it come from? Well, this planet was a dead rock. And it was, as it condensed, there were volcanoes for millions of years, probably hundreds of millions of years. Those volcanoes ejected the water particles in the rock into the atmosphere. What was an atmosphere? It was toxic, poisonous. Wouldn't call it an atmosphere. But it was too hot to rain. So all the water that we have now in the oceans was suspended. And finally the planet cooled down enough for it to rain. And the rain covered the planet. That was before the continents emerged. So then some of the land that was now submerged by that water arose. And in those areas that got wet a couple of times a day, those are where we feel life began. Cyanobacteria invented photosynthesis. And the photosynthesis, most of those plants are for the most part in the water. There's no plants on land. And those plants put all the oxygen into the atmosphere. So water is not just key for life now for us, but water, in fact, is where life began and created our atmosphere. So we need to respect it a lot more than we are right now. Currently, we have a synergistic kind of relationship. Water circulates the planet in what's called the hydrological cycle. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And it's amazing. But I just love teachers and talking to kids. I sometimes talk about the hydrological cycle, which is accumulation, water flowing across the land, transpiration, the sunlight evaporating it and the trees breathing it out. That water vaporizes, condensation, and then precipitation. And I was doing this for some class, and some kid went, yeah, accumulation, transpiration, condensation, and precipitation. Like they had all these signs for it, and they knew exactly what was going on. And that's what we're currently jeopardizing with the greenhouse gases we're putting up into the air. We're affecting the hydrological cycle. the intensity and duration of storms, longer droughts, longer heat waves, longer intense rain, as Ontario just found out. We've got all this flooding all over the place, such as in Minden Mills right now and other places. So, stop it. So our hydrological cycle, to me, it's somewhat similar to the formation of the planet and the formation of water. Water's still going everywhere. Once it rains, it flows across the land. It creates our headwater areas, our surface water streams. It percolates into the ground and can be groundwater and or aquifers or aquitards, which is very important here with your arsenic and other problems. We started as the Headwaters Institute. Headwaters are very simply first, second, and third order streams. A first order stream is one with no tributaries. Two firsts come together, they form a second. 2 seconds, 100 ones could come in, it's not going to change. 2 twos come together, it's a third. So these things grow exponentially. The biggest watershed in the world is the Amazon. It's a 12th order stream. It's not 100, it's not 47, it's 12. And it has the only 2 11 order streams in the world. The Mackenzie is a 10th order stream. So as they get bigger, it's geometric progression. And it infiltrates into the ground and it exfiltrates out of the ground. Our cold water fisheries, such as the Credit, where you have great trout fishing, it's a cold water stream because there's so much percolation of groundwater that goes into the karst dolomite of the Niagara Escarpment. And when it comes out, it's chilled to ground temperature at 58 degrees. That's why there's cold water fisheries. And of course, also, because it infiltrates, that's how we get our arsenic and other chemicals, either naturally from the soil or from when people get in and start disturbing that soil. There's no clock. So what I'm going to do today, I wanted to give you that as just some common background about how much we love and respect water. This is kind of, as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of a very condensed expression of the whole 9 yards of watershed management and our desire to shift to watershed security, which I'll get into. I'm going to provide a framework of what watershed management is right now. There's lots of bullets on the pages. That's why I handed them out. There are things you can research. You can ask me, email me if you have any questions on those elements. Then we're going to get into recent and future challenges. So just imagine a picture of Doug Ford up there. And then we'll talk about what Mono can do. So as per some of the things we've handed out in the introduction, and I don't want to repeat it over and over again, but we are a registered charity that promotes watershed security. And that includes water security. There's a lot of consternation right now because there's a bill, I think it's 100, that is introducing the prospect of municipally owned water corporations. And 10 days ago, that was included the prospect of municipal private partnerships where they could sell shares to water companies. And that's been taken out of the draft legislation. Only municipalities will be allowed to own the shares. So they're kind of putting a little lid on water security, which is your municipal water supply, but we're still, but watershed security includes water security because it's the water flowing across the landscape and going into our aquifers that feeds the water security issues. Then we believe, and this is our struggle with all of our environmental organizations that we work with so strongly in 3 land use planning coalitions. They are so angry at Doug Ford and the developers and the appearance of corruption from the Greenbelt scandal that they are just absolutely frothing at the mouth. We've been telling them for 5 years, it's all about water. If you use water as the key metric for land use planning, the land use planning issues are going to go away. So we're still a voice in the wilderness. We haven't been able to break through. I think we're starting to finally see that. The crisis in Waterloo, where there is a moratorium on development permits, there's emerging crises in other communities. Hello, Mono. There's farmers that are having incredible difficulty trusting the water that they have to irrigate their crops. Some of that is quantity, some of that is salt from on the roads. So we have to do a better job both with our land use planning. If we don't cut down all the trees, if we don't drain all the wetlands, if we don't shove concrete pavement everywhere to adjust to reduce the flow of stormwater, we wouldn't have so many water problems. And so currently in all of our planning mechanisms, water is taken for granted. It's kicked down the policy tree to the implementation phase. It's not planned from the beginning. So we get into these problems. So that's who we are. Ontario, I don't know if you are familiar with this. I speak to a lot of crowds that are intense policy wonks like myself. So we know all about the Conservation Authorities Act 1946 and the beginnings of the, Ontario led the world. No organization in the world had conservation authorities. Ministries of the environment weren't formed until the 1970s. Ontario was one of the first in 1970, and that was because of the Rome Conference on Sustainable Development. All the governments across the world, Canada, Ontario, Canada, the US, Europe, they started to create ministries of the environment. But Ontario was 14 years ahead of that, 1946, creating conservation authorities. And that influenced a whole raft of elements of the planning regime. These are those bullets that we're not going to talk to. The Niagara Escarpment Plan was the first water planning commission in the world. We have a really good planning act and a provincial policy statement which guides development. The Environmental Bill of Rights, another almost world leading. But water was very much the focus of the Lake Simcoe Protection Act, the Oak Ridges Moraine, the Greenbelt, a place to grow, endangered, everything. It was inculcated throughout all these acts because we had done such a poor job with water in the 30s and 40s, cutting down trees, creating erosion and flooding conditions. Hurricane Hazel would not have been so bad had we not cut down all the trees on the Oak Ridges Moraine. So all of these things are connected. However, since 1946, with all of these things, the watershed management has become just very complex. There are all these interacting agencies, there are all these interacting bits of legislation, there are all these committees of government people who get together and decide who's going to do what. And so it really is an Excedrin headache. I think everybody in this room remembers the old Excedrin headache commercials on TV. It's not just a regular headache, it's an Excedrin headache. And so we have unequal policies, very, very different resources. Some municipalities support and contract their conservation authorities to do really good work to help them with their official plans, which is now outlawed. Thank you, Mr. Ford. As he outlawed green development standards. So there's all these things that have become very, very complex. Some CAs ensure that some municipalities ensure their CAs get good levies, and so they have resources. But some people's water is protected better than other people's water. And we don't think that's right. Water is fundamental right. It's a global commons, and we need to respect and protect water more uniformly across the landscape. So, blasting right along. And I still don't have the time. Oh, there's a clock. When did I start? Did I start at 9:40? Okay, perfect. God, I'm good. Thank you very much. So I want to talk a little bit about what the current problems are. For the most part, the system has become fragmented because we have too many agencies, not enough resources, and things are different in different geographic areas. So one outcome, you won't be able to see this, and if I printed it on an 8.5 by 11, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. But we have this amazing map. Sorry that it's so hard to see. This depicts over 40 water management organizations just in south central Ontario. 36 of them are conservation authorities. There's others like the Severn Sound Environmental Association. There are areas covered by the Ministry of Natural Resources where there's no conservation authority. There's the Lake Simcoe Protection Act and the Oak Ridges Marine Greenbelt Acts. And some of the CAs and part of the Lake Simcoe area are within the Greenbelt. So right away you've got 3 overlapping geographic areas with different policies and priorities. So we've been trying to tell the ministry for 5 years that this is fragmented and needs to be standardized. So we're not opposed to the harmonization of policies for conservation authorities as proposed under this the draft act to consolidate them and impose a provincial conservation agency to tell them what to do. We're not opposed to a coordinating agency. In fact, 7 years ago, we proposed the creation of regional water boards. So we're not opposed to the concept. But what this government is doing is it's trimming rather than consolidating to the highest standard. It's reducing the cost. The government, province hasn't paid a provincial fee to conservation authorities for 15 years. They're now talking about $3 million to 36 CAs to help them consolidate. Thanks very much. So we're not get this. This is going to be worse, but that's the situation. That's why we're fragmented. The next one is that with so many agencies involved, and I mentioned that people sit around a table. If you want to bring an issue to the attention of CBC, for example, and I'll give you the example of the Erin sewage treatment plant, and the concern there is that the effluent discharge is going to be above the temperature in which brook trout can live. When this was brought to their attention in a dramatic manner, not by me, in a serious manner, to say, you know, suddenly the agencies started talking to each other. They didn't, well, I'll talk to the Ministry of Natural Resources. I'll give MECP a call. We're having a meeting next week. Somebody should be in charge of some simple things, which I'll get to later. But with this fragmentation, we get agencies saying, well, I'm not sure, let me get back to you. I run a business. I don't run my business that way. And the other one is, and I said I wasn't going to read very much, but one of the outcomes of what we have right now from this is that the conservation authorities do watershed report cards. We have 886 watersheds under the jurisdiction of the 36 conservation authorities. Forest conditions are fair, poor, or very poor in 64% of those. While the surface water, and this is quite interesting, I would have thought it would have been worse. I would have thought the surface water would be worse than the forest conditions. There's science reasons I've been educated on. The surface water quality in those categories, fair, poor, or very poor, 52%. And if we did a map of where those very poor were, you could probably pretty well identify them without doing any science, because it's downstream of Richmond Hill, it's downstream of Brampton, it's where the agglomerations are, because we have too much concrete and such poor stormwater treatment. So we're not in good condition, and this really applies to mono. Given the increase of sprawl, and the Ford government has imposed sprawl on some communities like Caledon and Halton, they wanted to intensify their downtowns and build up. And the Ford government imposed 9,000 acres of farmland in Halton to be converted to housing. They didn't want that. They were opposed to it. So given the increases in urban sprawl and the changing climate, we can predict that these numbers will deteriorate, and there would be more moratoriums on development similar to there are in Waterloo. And some of the material from some of your councillors and members of MC Squared that Steve so kindly forwarded me so I could get a background, the issue of water quantity that was raised several weeks ago, and the report was then released from the Source Water Protection Committee, where there's a midterm quantity concern. You're on it. It's not imminent. It's not going to happen tomorrow. People have time to responsibly work on it, but you'll end up like Waterloo if that's not dealt with. Waterloo is not, they're actually houses that are built. They won't give them water. Those developers are threatening to sue. There's other developments that won't start yet because they haven't got their water allocation. Developers are going to lose their workforce. If you can't keep the framers and the electricians and the plumbers and the concrete pourers engaged, they're going to find a job in another community and eventually move. Then you're going to have to reattract your workforce. So there's this multiplier effect from stupidity. And whereas Walkerton was caused by poor water quality monitoring, in fact, criminally poor, Waterloo is being caused by poor water quantity monitoring. They weren't monitoring their wells. And the provincial government was issuing permits for aggregate pits with no consideration at all for water and below water table aggregate pits. So these are all things that act together, and I'm way on to the next page. So that's why we're very concerned, and I'm thrilled to see that you're on this, that you're planning in advance, and the report, the actual report that was tabled, I think took away a lot of the concern that people had when they first heard there's a water quantity crisis in Mono. I think it's not imminent. I think you've got time to work for it, and the report's very encouraging on those fronts. So those are the fragmentation issues. This is what happens when we have this over 40 agencies involved in watershed management. The other one that's happened, go away, I don't want you there, is dilution. The provincial government wants to take the planet back to the volcanic rock it was with no water on it. They just don't like water. The Housing Action Plan, we're on like version 7 right now because they can't get it right. They keep taking away laws and regulations encouraging the developers to build. 0 condo starts in the first quarter of this year in Toronto. The developers just don't have the right conditions. And the government's trying hard to encourage housing. We need housing. We need affordable housing. I'm not against that. But when you give away so much, way back when they were first elected, the first bill that they proposed had a section in it to establish special bylaw areas where municipalities were alleviated from the responsibility of honoring the Clean Water Act. Well, that's a good thing to do. Who needs to honor the Clean Water Act, which is what sets up the Source Protection Committees? That, we beat them back. Environmental Defense, thank goodness, spent $150,000 on a campaign that we supported. That bill was withdrawn from the House. We've had virtually no similar successes since. And now it's not special bylaw areas, it's special economic zones, which is why they're going to steal the airport. It's what they're doing with Ontario Place. It's what they're going to do in the Ring of Fire. Obviously, they streamline approvals. This is a biggie. Bill 185. If in the past you were downstream of a development and you were concerned about the stormwater plan and the volume and the sediment, what you were going to get downstream water, and the sediment gets deposited on the gravel beds where the fish breed, and the temperature changes, those were reasons to be able to appeal the Ontario Land Tribunal. Now, you can only appeal if you're on a contiguous property. And, oh, by the way, you had to be involved in the public meetings from the very beginning, or else you weren't allowed to appeal. So it's just this horrible table of development at any cost. I won't get into Section 4.2 of the PPS, but that directs municipalities to They actually have to embrace the watershed as a meaningful level for planning, and they have to protect, restore, or improve water through their planning. No municipality is doing that. I've made 12 presentations in the last year. They want no part of it, and the government's not going to force them to do it. Right now, and we have omnibus bills with no consultation, no committee meetings, and closure. So this government really doesn't want to talk about water. On Thursday night, Steve Clark, who was forced to resign from the Greenbelt scandal, where he was taking land out of the Greenbelt, he has now proposed that Bill 97 be voted on in the House, and never mind the committee hearings. Well, Bill 97 happens to be the Consolidation of Conservation Authorities. Oh, and by the way, it has Freedom of Information changes. And if we get access to all of the papers, maybe somebody's going to jail. So they're trying to rush Bill 97 to that floor of the House without any committee hearings whatsoever. This is our government. There are other aligned reductions encouraged by the Housing Action Plan. The Endangered Species Act has become a joke. You used to be able to have to protect the habitat, the range of a species. Now you only have to protect the den. So like where a turtle lays their eggs, you have to protect it. Where the turtle can live and eat, you don't have to. And on and on and on. I call it the pitiful aggregate policies because our pits can now get, they're just below water table is not a problem. So used to have to have municipal approval because below the water table can impact municipal water, and the councillors have a legal obligation to protect the health of their municipality. They took it away. So you don't have a say now in below water table pits. And on and on. I'm going to go, just about need to wrap up. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier the twin climate and biodiversity crises. So these are the really big challenges on water. So we think watershed management has had its day. Thank you, world-leading, fabulous, fragmented and diluted. And we think it should be changed for a system based on watershed security with aspirational goals and science-based outcomes. I'm going to give you two. The provincial targets should mimic something in a federal guideline called how much habitat is enough. The federal guideline suggests that you should protect a minimum of 30% of a watershed in natural heritage, 40% is better, and 50% is 50% is optimal. We have no targets at all for maintaining natural heritage in Ontario. We have the Greenbelt, thank you very much, that's great. But every watershed should, if you cut down all the trees and drain all the wetlands, that watershed's going to deteriorate. So we need and all those are in how much habitat is enough. The percentage of wetlands that should be there, the percentage of treed edges along streams for 30 meters, the overall natural heritage for the watershed. We don't have any aspirational targets. Here's the second one. We have something called the Ontario Provincial Water Quality Objectives. That's what sets it. It's not exactly the same as the arsenic and selenium issues that you have here, but for scores of chemicals, like E. coli in the water, there are targets that you should not go over, which start to impact fish health, the other creatures that live in the water, and, of course, drinking water. We have targets. There's no triggers. We know of streams that have exceeded E. coli and other key objectives in the provincial water quality year after year after year. No agency is tasked with addressing it. From what level? That's what I meant earlier by science-based outcomes. That's what I meant earlier when I talked about the temperature of the fish, where these people are meeting in committee to determine whether or not the effluent coming out of Aaron STP is going to kill the brook trout. And, and at one point, somebody from CV said, you know, you're right, but it's microclimate, and we have other streams that are above this temperature, and we have brook trout. So if we kill the brook trout in this tributary of the Credit, we'll just go get some from another creek. And I said to them, oh, which international science journal did you report that to? Because I haven't seen that. So we need standards, targets, and people should be responsible, not a committee meeting, but maybe the Conservation Authority should be responsible for this, the municipality for that, the provincial government for this, and you know who to call. So that's, we believe, shifting to watershed security. And that's why we have the big poster, watershed security, and that's why we have a handout, and a little poster, which is the municipal lens for watershed security. Within a month, we'll have a whole slew of these. We have the watershed security, the municipal. The provincial was held up. The provincial guidelines are coming out next week. And then we're going to get to agriculture and aggregates. We'll have sectors and targets, science-based targets for every sector so we can treat our water better. I hope I'm near the end. Oh, look at this. Magic. Was encouraged when Michael? There's too many new names. Doug, sorry, my apologies, Doug. He reminded us of what the goals of MC Squared are. You know, that's absolutely perfect. Monitor and meet and publish and get the citizens engaged. That's absolutely perfect. We believe that what Mono needs to continue doing is through all the emails that I was sent, again, thank you, Stephen, on what's happening, whether it's the new developments, the inability to turn on the sewage treatment plant, the growing arsenic. You're on it. You're doing the right things. You're looking at the reports. You're engaging people. We would suggest that this needs more engagement, that you need to build allies. Go to the meetings, who's there, talk to the funny guy in the red shirt. Oh, wait a minute, not me. And find out what they do and what resources they have, what they know. Build allies. And the most important thing is, other than, I'm going to touch on these in a minute, is to concentrate on the policies, not the politics. We are a registered charity. We're not allowed to lobby. And people say, how can you write that stuff, Andrew? It's just it's on the policies. It's not political. I'm not saying vote for the left-hand party over the right-hand party. We're saying we want these policies. And you can do that without any fear whatsoever. So I encourage you to understand the local policies, sort out the sensitive, compassionate, elected leaders, find those allies there, and ask. You were mentioned, you know what's going on in Caledon. Caledon is trying to put in 35,000 homes on 7,000 acres north of a particular road, and they put forward 12 bylaws, and Democracy Caledon has spent so far over $200,000 on a judicial review, that those bylaws are illegal. And you need to get way ahead of that. You need to do that at the official plan, you need to do that at the secondary planning, you need to be involved, and concentrate on the policy, not the politics. Poor old Democracy Caledon is being slagged as a bunch of wannabes who want to be elected, and that they're hurting Caledon. It's just, the temperature up there is horrible. The elected politicians are being political, but the charities can't be political. Concentrate on the policies. So those are the big takeaways. 22 minutes. Support the Conservation Authority. Consider how you can integrate land use and watershed planning at the municipal level. Map and include your significant source water contribution areas, locally significant wetlands in official plans, and then defend them. Sometimes significant wetlands, get filled in accidentally by sediment and gravel trucks. And then they're not a significant wetland anymore, and all the wildlife's gone, and they're not filtering water very well. So you've got to map them and defend them. Same with the key source water protection areas, and exclude them for site alteration planning. That's where you don't pay attention, and a motion goes to council to approve a development. Wait a minute, isn't this on a protected infiltration zone from the Source Protection Committee? Oh, well, we're going to put down some special low-impact development, permeable pavement. It's okay, don't worry about it. They need to be excluded from site alteration planning. The rest I've already spoken to. I'm sorry I went a few minutes over. I hope you find the handout helpful for further details. Thank you very much.
Well done, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. We have time for a couple of questions. If anybody had anything for Andrew. Right behind you, Stephen.
Hi, Andrew. I have a question about how many municipalities in Dufferin County have you presented to?
What was the question?
How many municipalities in Dufferin County have been, has this been
Zero.
received?
Zero. We didn't get to plug our organization very much. We rely tremendously on the fabulous legal and planning resources of the biggies. Ontario Nature, Environmental Defense, Canadian Environmental Law Association. Those organizations are the leaders in the intellectual capital. We steal and borrow their stuff. We're different. They don't get above Highway 7. We have 50 partner organizations north of Highway 7. So we depute when our neighbors call us in. We were in Pickering, we're in Halliburton, we're on Lake Simcoe, we're on the Credit. So Halton region, Peel region, Dufferin? No, we're Dufferin. I always do that. Durham. So it's just, I get paid 12 weeks a year. So I think we hit above our batting average. Our batting average is above our IQ. Let me say it that way. But we go where somebody's seeded the ground. We get called in to help. To show up at a council meeting uninvited, they say, well, who's this guy? He doesn't live here. And the way you'd be amazed. We deputed to Muskoka. And we're on the watershed, Muskoka Watershed Council for about a year. And it was like, we were like wearing the wrong color shirt, I tell you. We didn't live there. They didn't want to hear from us. So it's really nice to be invited. We're happy to be in a collective effort. We'll funnel you the stuff we beg, borrow, or steal from the biggies, keep you informed, make sure our policy recommendations are accurate, but we just don't have the resources to depute all over the place. Sorry for the long answer.
Yeah, if you could come up here and use the microphone. Oh, I got a microphone for you.
Thanks for your presentation, Andrew. It's good to see this happening because our county really needs it, and have to examine what we're doing and plan better for what's coming up in the future. I have two questions. One is, where does water fall in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada?
Hello.
And while you're thinking about that...
There is a movement. The Council of Canadians has been arguing for years that water is part of the global commons and we should have a right to water, but it's not made any progress constitutionally.
wouldn't it make sense if it was included in the Charter of Rights, if we had the right to clean water, wouldn't a lot of these problems be taken care of or be addressed?
Oh, Virginia, there is no Santa Claus. Are you a journalist?
No.
Well, good questions, and you're taking notes, which always make me very afraid. So here's a little bauble that people might not be aware of. The Constitution separates responsibilities for the feds and the province. Mm-hmm. So the feds have international waters that cross boundaries. And the Great Lakes, navigable waters, which is where larger, not your 8 horsepower, 9 horsepower boat goes, but navigable waters, and fisheries. That's their responsibility. They don't have a constitutional responsibility for watershed management. Health Canada has obligations to protect drinking water, and they work on the Interprovincial Council on Drinking Water through the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment in Winnipeg, so that there are some common standards. But Ontario owns the lake bed under the Great Lakes, on our side of the line. The feds don't. And Ontario is very territorial with respect to its actions or non-actions on water. Under a provincial-federal agreement, there are huge efforts underway right now to address algae in Lake Erie. And so there's one of those committees I was talking about. There's federal, provincial, conservation authority, municipalities, farmers' organizations working on reducing the nitrates to reduce the algae in Lake Erie. And it's a big target for the International Joint Commission. There's no written mandate for that committee. We can't get a list of who from which agencies are on that committee, and there's no budget for that committee. We have suggested to the federal government that this exercise be a model to write watershed management into the agreement that I mentioned. I didn't do that. And so these things move very slowly, and because the province wants to have control over the water that it's not protecting, these collaboration efforts are really, really tough. So it's a good question. I really don't have a solid answer for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, and part 2 has to do with a relatively new phenomenon, and I want to know if it falls in the same bucket as aggregate, and that is data centers. And are there, to your knowledge, are there any data centers proposed for Ontario? And if one is proposed, does it get treated the same way that aggregate gets treated, and the public has no say?
It's too early. There are huge organizations and collaboratives in the U.S. Because they're far more prevalent there, and they have less water there. And so our American colleagues are leading the charge on against these data centers. The big guys like Zuckerberg have pledged that they're not going to take any local energy to make the energy rates go up. So they're talking about small nuclear reactors to power their data centers. Yay, let's do that. And the other issue is water to cool. To cool the heat generated by these data centers. We're not near that here. I don't know of any data center that's been proposed yet in Ontario. The concern is the 700 acres that is being, what is that legal term? Expropriated in Wilmot County. All prime agricultural land, 700 acres. And the town says the province wants it. The province says, no, the town wants it for employment. Nobody knows what it's for. Is it a Chrysler EV plant? Is it another Amazon warehouse? Is it data centers? Nobody knows. And what's going on in Wilmot County, it's so bad, and it ties into the Waterloo water shortage, because within the last couple of weeks, Waterloo canceled its 1981 agreement with Wilmette County that it would never come and take any of Wilmette County's water. Now with the water moratorium and they need water, they have ripped that, they have informed Wilmette County that that agreement is null and void. So we're waiting for the next shoe to drop. Really good questions. These things are unfolding in real time.
Elaine, did you have a comment?
One comment and then one quick question. So I may be misremembering this, but I thought that water was declared a human right at the UN.
I wish I could answer that.
Well, I'm just putting that out there so we can all look it up on Google. Anyway, but I did think that that was the case. Also, my question is, because all the hydrologists that come and tell us that drinking below the water table is no big deal, take all the cap off the water and nothing's going to happen. Is that true? What is the impact to the water after you take all the gravel away and just have a big open pond? Thank you.
Tough crowd. So the first thing I would say is that part of this goes back to the Wellington Water Watchers and the big battle they had up there with Nestle and their water bottling plant. It gets into two things. At what level, at what depth is the groundwater? And Nestle was maintaining that they were down like 600 feet, that they weren't taking water from the near surface aquifers that the town was going to be using. And they were so, you know, it was the largest number of submissions on the Environmental Registry of Ontario ever at that point in time. People wanted them out, and Nestle sold their plant and left. And they felt that it was a lack of science knowledge by the community. It was misinformation and political campaigning. That's their position. The other thing that I was working with the Wellington Water Watchers, and I asked them, what's the discharge, what's the drawdown, and what's the recharge rate? They had no idea. And so that's why it's so important to do the monitoring. That's why what's happened in Waterloo is a crime. They're supposed to do the monitoring. They should know the recharge rate and the withdrawal rate. And you say, well, we have water for 30 years, or we have water for 12 months. Nobody's allowed to water their grass anymore, right? And that didn't happen there. So the question of, now, but aggregate pits don't necessarily flow to municipal reservoirs. Aggregate quarries, a lot of that water goes back into the, if it's on the Niagara Escarpment, for example, the Dufferin pit, when you drive on the 401, you see the bridge through the broken gap in the escarpment. That's on dolomite, it's fractured dolomite, horrendous recharge rate. That's why those rivers are still cold water streams with cold water fishing, because of that. So what they're doing is they have 27 pumps. They pump the water back underground. So where does the water go? Those issues need to be mapped, and groundwater is really difficult to map. So there needs to be a better job of saying, well, what is the risk? If we don't know the risk, we need to make rules based on the risk. But one of the challenges in the aggregate is that it's fire and forget. If you are on a well and a new pit goes in, or a pit gets expanded, and suddenly you've got to drill another 100 feet for water, and you want to think, well, it maybe has something to do with the expansion of this pit. It's on you. You have to hire a hydrogeologist. You have to pay for the studies. You have to prove why the water table dropped, and it was related to their activities over there. And so this reverse onus, that's like guilty until proven innocent, right? And so the aggregate pits are getting away with a lot of activity without the science and without the responsibility. And I just think they need to be more responsible human beings than they are now. Currently, there's a there's a huge couple of organizations are demanding a moratorium on any new gravel pits opening in Ontario. We think that's a bit extreme. We just think that you should open no aggregate pits below the water table. So, but they don't like our suggestion.
Okay, I'm going to have to call
Yeah,
it there.
you are.
We've got 2 minutes for our coffee break.
Very quickly, the UN declared water a human right in 2010.
There you go. Quick, fast, breaking news.
Bonus.
Andrew, thank you again. Folks, we have 5 minutes for coffee, then we're going to come back here for the rest of the program. Fantastic.
Hear me now. Okay, so my name is Cherish Armstrong, and I come to you as a member of the town's Climate Action Committee. This committee was formed in December of 2025 at the direction of Council to guide the implementation of the town's climate action initiatives. Due to some unfortunate bad luck and some even worse weather, we finally had our inaugural meeting at the end of March. The committee hopes to continue the tradition that the town of Mono has had in trying to mitigate the effects of the emissions that cause climate change. All the lights in this building, and as all of Mono's buildings, are LED. We've installed solar panels on the top of the Public Works building, and the town has just ordered its first electric pickup truck. We've identified our initial project areas and assigned them to subcommittees. These project areas are public education campaigns, options for green energy production, like solar panels for the municipality and private residents, agriculture and home gardening initiatives, and an updated energy audit. These are ideas identified by committee members for the initial work for the Climate Action Committee. Members of the public are always welcome to attend meetings and join subcommittees to help in this important work. Solving climate change requires us all to work together. But in honor of Earth Day next week, I personally would like to encourage you to do whatever you can because every little bit helps. Whether it's carrying a reusable coffee cup, getting the kids involved in recycling as much as you can, or investigating the possibilities of switching your heating and cooling systems in your home, your actions add up in the long run. Thank you.
Thanks, Cherish. Thank you, Cherish, for that. Okay, it's time for the main event. It is your opportunity to ask questions of your council. I would ask that you use a microphone so that everyone can hear you. You state your name, and at least to start off, if I could ask just one question per participant, and then we can make sure that we hear from all who wish to seek some answers. Do I have anybody coming to the at-bat circle? Here we go.
Hi, my name is Marion Heron. I live in on Blind Line. My question is not always, I'm interested in water, and so I really enjoyed this presentation, so thank you. I'm wondering about Watermark, the development there. One, the water treatment plant, when it was built, they had problems with the water treatment, and I wondered if that's been finalized, finished, and is it now working okay so there's not trucks going back and forth with effluent problems? And the part of the what is happening to the land use, the developer wanted to put a lot of townhouses in there, and I haven't heard anything about what's happening to that land and what happened when it went to the tribunal or some review by the Ontario government, and I haven't heard anything more about what's happening to that land. So it's a two-part question.
Could we just clarify, Marion, are you asking about the water treatment plant or the sewage treatment plant?
Sorry, sewage treatment plant, forgive me, yeah.
I'm not the best person to speak to that. I know they're working very hard to fix, there are problems.
She's talking about water.
The Watermark one. The Watermark one?
Yes.
Well, I think there's still problems there. I haven't heard. I mean, that's owned by a condo organization, not by the town.
So there's no cost to the town on that? No, okay.
Mayor Creelman?
As far as I know, the Watermark plant is functioning. You will always have some truck movements because it needs to be cleaned out every once in a while, apart from, the simple operation. As for the developer's land, we were successful in getting that before both the Ontario Land Tribunal as well as the Superior Court. I would say that it is in limbo at the present time. There's nothing to report, but the plan that they submitted to the town of Mono was found to be questionable in our view, and we went to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and it also peeled off to the Superior Court, and we won in both venues.
Do I have to press something?
I
No.
don't think so.
Okay.
It's magic.
Signe Ball from Mona Center. Well, let me preface by saying I have driven through Caledon recently a fair bit and been pretty horrified by the houses, monster homes that are going up there, sitting on the side of the road, sprinkled all through the town. 3 years ago, Mono discussed figuring out how to manage monster homes in our town, including sightlines, setbacks, maximum square footages, and also possibly lowering the minimum square footage on other homes. So I'm just wondering where that might stand.
What a great question. In fact, I raised this at our own council meeting just this week. So we have on our unfinished business list, which is a list of items that we've brought forward at the table and that we've needed to assign to staff, and staff have all their other duties to do, and then we come up with these brilliant ideas. And so there is an outstanding item to review and create a large homes bylaw. So that is being worked on. And now I don't have the dates in front of me to say, but it will be in the coming up quarter, I believe. So it's with our planning group. And so they're looking at where does that belong in our official plan and in our zoning bylaws. And it's complicated. And so they're working on that. So it's there, and it's on my radar and our radar. So thank you for that question.
Councillor Mantalo?
Thank you, Elaine. And further, actually, we did get a plan which was presented to us, Signe, and we didn't like it, so it's been sent back, and we're asking for them to redo it again.
In all fairness, that was from a previous planner, and it was a while ago, and it wasn't what we were looking for. So now it is back with planning to come back with, we gave them more direction. So yes, that's correct.
We have a question that came in online just prior to the meeting from Jacob Bennington. Does the town have a program for managing invasive Phragmites in the area? If not, is the town aware that there is funding by the MNR through the Ontario Phragmites Action Program to support new and existing initiatives to prevent, manage, and control this invasive species? Councillor Nix?
Okay, the answer is multi-layered. We have a volunteer committee called the Headwaters Streams Committee. Karen Morrison back there is the chair. We do a bit of work on Phragmites. It's total volunteer labor. If someone's got Phragmites on their property, we can go out there and show them how to remove it or help them remove it. We've tried it in several locations. Backing up a few years earlier than this, and I'm not sure it's still in the budget, we did have some money in our municipal budget to look at Phragmites in a few of our stormwater management ponds and ditches. I'm not sure that's still running. We did it the same year the county was trying to handle Phragmites. On a broader scale, and I sit on the board of Credit Valley Conservation, we did put in a request for a grant, a fairly large grant for a 5-year program to handle Phragmites at Island Lake. It's serious at Island Lake. We've mapped it. We have a management plan, but we didn't get the grant. So we don't have any, we being the CVC, Credit Valley Conservation, doesn't have any sort of spare change itself that it can spend on Phragmites. I'm going on memory. I think we needed, yeah, don't quote me on this, $500,000 for a 5-year program to handle the Phragmites at Island Lake. I think it was half a million. Anyway, we didn't get the grant. We'll keep trying though.
Can't hear you on the recording if we don't.
Oh, right, okay. Hi. I know most of you. Just a quick question. What are your council doing to support Melanchthon Council with the Strata Aggregates quarry situation?
Mayor Krillman?
We're very aware of the threat that Melanchthon is under, and in fact, adjacent municipalities are under with a proposal to mine beneath the water table, explosively mine, not simply dig. We have supported them with a motion. We've talked about it at County Council as well. It's truly disturbing, frankly. And Melanchthon has been through a lot. This isn't the first proposal. There was one a number of years ago by a hedge fund out of Boston to create a mega gravel pit up there. They had the effect of buying properties, tearing houses down, destroying the assessment base, and then they were chased out of town.
Just so you know, I'm sorry to interject. We chased them out of town. We chased them out of town because of a federal environment assessment.
Yes.
So my question to you guys is, and to everyone, the province isn't going to help with this. If anyone has connections, or please write. Carney's office is very good in supporting me and fisheries and Kyle. I'm looking at the people, not the party, okay? I would really appreciate everyone in this room writing Carney's office about this situation, and fisheries, and Kyle. I'm sorry to interject.
Perhaps the Premier could fly in on his new jet.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I just want to, may I just tell the next story? So Doug Ford called me on a Sunday morning and said he doesn't make deals. De Gasperis is not his friend, and asked who our MPP was. Okay, thank you.
Nancy, could I just add to that?
Oh, yeah.
Could I just add to that answer to what Nancy said? Going back to the mega pit that we defeated 10 years ago, here's the difference, and Andrew, you're probably aware of this. Under the old rules, the lead agency there in terms of getting the technical studies that were done and having them peer reviewed was the Conservation Authority, the NVCA. Today, conservation authorities don't have that power. At Credit Valley, we're facing a very giant pit, and we as a conservation authority don't even have a say. We are not even a commenting agency on that one, because the province has taken away our power to talk to municipalities about natural heritage features.
All right, we've got a couple of questions that MC Squared came up with over time. Is council planning some evening council meetings to facilitate our large commuting population to participate in council affairs in person? Anyone like to? Councillor Magdalene?
I'll answer that because I'm sort of responsible for initiating the change about 8 years ago or so. Nobody was coming in the evening. So we had a number of bleary-eyed councillors and others that felt they could deal with. Their brain would be functioning better in the morning, and we've gone to mornings for that reason. I recognize what you're saying, but the other thing that we've done, which I think is really quite fantastic, is that all of our meetings are on YouTube. And the meetings are itemized so that you can go in and you can pick out item number 7 sort of thing, click on it without having to listen to everything. And you can do that any time that you want. And that's the way a lot of people are picking up on our council meetings now.
Thank you very much. I was just going to add to that yes, you brought it up. When I joined, we were doing them afternoon and morning through, and then looking at who's coming. This is terrific that you're all here today, but you guys don't come on Tuesdays, whether it was in the evening or in the morning, because it's Tuesday, right? Like everybody's got stuff to do. So at the same time that we said there weren't enough people, and when do we as a group function? Of course, the staff, you have to, if they're here in the evening, then you get them, they're in lieu, so then they're not going going to be here on a Wednesday afternoon when you need them because we've had to give them time off. So there was a lot of reasons, but it was also because of this electronic world that we live in now, that we could have them on not only is it recorded, and you can look at it later, which without question generates questions from the public. We get a lot of emails from people saying, I just watched the meeting, here's my question. And also the being able to phone in and participate, or computer in and participate during, even if you're at work. So many people work from home, and so they can be using their computer and so on. So I think certainly there's a new council coming. I guess I would be open. I'd be open between now and the end of this term to entertain trying again, just in the spirit of the question. But it's not necessarily going to get more people out, I don't think, by the time of day. It's more getting the information of what's going to be discussed and what has been discussed out to the public.
I was just going to say that we did reserve the right to hold nighttime meetings on particularly contentious issues, and we have done that, notwithstanding the fact that the vast majority of our meetings have been held during the day. I'm open to the idea of the new council reconsidering, and anyone considering a run for a seat on Mono Council should be aware that the status quo could change.
I'm just going to be a little bit cheeky here. How many of you will come if we host the meeting on Tuesday nights?
Depends on the agenda.
Well, yes, true. We need to make the agenda exciting, but I just wanted to ask you that. And I just wanted to let you know I'm wearing my sunglasses because I have a sensitivity to these lights. So it's not because I'm blurry-eyed. Cool.
Bill Monroe. I object to Councillor Manctolo saying there were bleary-eyed people at the meetings. I used to come and I was, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
He meant us council members, so just to be clear.
Well, that's taken for granted, isn't it, really? I'd like to talk about water, actually, but in a different sense. A few years ago, there was a report from Watson about the drinking water in Cardinal Woods and Masters Creek. And as a result, the costs per month to those who use it went up quite high, not dollar-wise, but percentage-wise. And it was to pay for a few things. One of them was an arsenic problem at Island Lake, and the other thing was a tower round about Cardinal Woods. And these things cost something like 10 million each. This money that's been paid in from the people who use it every month, I haven't seen any tenders out for the tower or the arsenic plant. Is the money put in another account? It doesn't go straight into the general account? And when are we going to get movement on the arsenic plant and the tower? Because every year you put it back, it's going to cost more. Thank you.
If I can, Bill, our water rates as well as our sewage rates over in the other part of the town, those monies collected are segregated. It's a user pay system, and some of the money that is collected goes into a reserve for future works, and the rest goes into the operation of the system, so that the taxpayer does not actually fund the operation of water and or sewage. It's the users who in fact are responsible for those costs. As for the tower, that was a suggestion of the ministry. I am not personally convinced that we need that kind of storage, given the fact that there's very little growth anticipated over in that part of the town. And for the arsenic, there is a study ongoing, or a process ongoing, that will give us a series of recommendations to consider as to how we proceed with that.
And Bill, that study on the arsenic that's going forward, we got a grant to cover that, so the water users are not paying for that. We did get a grant.
A grant, partial
right.
grant. It wasn't full. was a partial grant. It wasn't the full amount of the deal.
But it was a good-sized grant. I forget the exact amount.
Okay.
Excuse me, just one more question. You know, I'm actually talking, it's rhetoric. User pay for the water, that's great. What about user pay for the calcium when you don't use it?
Hi, Elaine Kehoe. When are we going to have a heritage committee?
I can answer that. Next term. We just recently in this past meeting made a motion to support extent, which it hasn't particularly happened for sure, but to support the drive for the Heritage Committee was that our new government has made changes to the ability to designate and the timing on that. And there is a push to push that date out to 2030 as opposed to 2028, I think it was 2027 or 28. So, right? Yeah, 2030 is the new one, but I mean, I think we were only pushing it a little bit, but we were pushing it nonetheless. Somebody's got their hand up. And did you want to interrupt or for another question? So that there's time for us to constitute, because as we had Cherish come this morning and make a comment, I'm sure she's here, I just can't see her. Oh, there you are. That we struck a new, we get an idea to have a new committee, we strike the new committee, we interview and everything, but the actual, takes weeks to get things off the ground. We're running very short, which is, it's going to be campaigning time soon. So it'll be next year, but there's no question but that Mono needs a heritage committee, and because we've got a lot of more good work to do that committee was doing.
Just if I could add to that, we had the best heritage committee I know in Dufferin County and probably beyond our borders. And they were well known in other areas for all the great work that they did. And we went into an unfortunate situation. And right now, we don't have the Heritage Committee, but as Melinda said, we did support the argument to push to 2030 for moving any properties that are on a registry, because we have a registry that lists all of the potential designations that we could make, and there are quite a few on that list, but there wasn't enough time to allow any of those designations to go forward because of the change in the policy downtown. And so now that's been pushed out, so we supported that with the hope that with a new council, when the new council is here, that the Heritage Committee will be reconstituted.
Clarification also on how committees work, that all committees are struck by the council when a new council comes in for the idea that they'll be around for that term. And even if everything was all hunky-dory and all the people want to be on the committee, that's not necessarily that the new council's going to strike those same committees or strike the same or populate them with the same people, right? It is a beast of the sitting council. So.
And the second part to that, approximately a year and a half ago, myself and another realtor in the area spent a substantial amount of time putting together guidelines for realtors as a whole, Toronto, Dufferin, Caledon, with guidelines that they would use when selling properties in Dufferin County. Nothing ever came of that, at least nothing that the Toronto Real Estate Board has been advised of. And now without the Heritage Committee, I've been getting comments that this is the time to buy in Mono, and there's no rules in place. I know that there are rules, don't get me wrong. I'm just hearing comments to that effect. So was anything ever implemented with the guidelines that we had set out?
And I want to, if I could, because I was part of that group and appreciate the work that you did and that another realtor did for that. And it is on our website, and Andrew can confirm that, I hope. Yes, yes, and yes. And did we take the next steps to distribute to, because I know you kindly provided us the list. I can't answer that question. I would have to go back to check on that for you.
There ended up being some issues with respect to how the town is entitled to broadcast things out, right? Which is why we don't have a Facebook group and all those kinds of things. There's regulations. So I know that it's on our website for our local realtors, but you're right. If you get a realtor coming up from someplace else who's not particularly looking few pages deep into our website, then it appears to be for naught. But no, yeah. So we'll have to look into how to bring that up to the front of our website. And that the problem with council is, of course, council can direct staff to do things, but then we don't always get back from staff. So we'll have to find out whether it's possible to send that to the realtor board.
Right. Thank you, Melinda. And so we will look into where that went from the suggestions that were made by that group to put forward that document out into the real estate world, and we'll get an answer.
I think our CAO may be able to elaborate on the issue of whether we did disseminate that document. The document was created, it has been put on the website. I just say that we get phone calls every single day from realtors on behalf of clients in the form of a due diligence inquiry with regard to a property. And we try to answer those questions as best we can. Sometimes we don't get those calls because people think they can shortcut that process with title insurance. That is not a wise thing to do. But we do our best to inform potential buyers of what the rules of engagement are in the town of Mono.
Sorry, Your Worship, I have my mic on because of feedback. It's controlling the feedback a little bit, but yes, we do push all real estates to our website. We do have a process now where everybody can put in a service request to get on the list of the many questions that we do receive, and it seems to be working fine. But yes, and we do have a lot of counter inquiries as well, and those would include Mono plus, not so much Mono, but yeah, they are out of boundary real estate properties, and we find that generally they're getting answers pretty quickly. Yeah.
Hello, Anne Poisson, 25 Side Road. Just a comment before my question. Hopefully there'll be a DEI committee next term as well as a Heritage Committee. I just wanted to maybe ask that the Heritage Committee talk to the DEI Committee so that the heritage of Aboriginals may be considered within the scope of the mandate of the Heritage Committee. That was my one comment. My question is more concerning water. Is there any policy within Mono to address agricultural infiltration or runoff, especially people who may lease out their land to farmers who then get a tax break for doing that? Maybe a farmer might, I would say, exploit the land for their own usage and revenue, and then there might be this synthetic fertilizer or high tillage rate that would then affect the soil, that then would affect the water. So my question is there any policy within Mono that addresses that at all? Thank you.
I'm not aware of any policy. I mean, And I know of one situation now where I'm pretty sure a particular farmer has a manure storage site that's too close to a stream, that's causing problems downstream, but I know of no power that the town has, and I'm not aware of any town that the Conservation Authority has to do anything about it. We can say, tisk, tisk, you shouldn't do that, but I'm not aware of any policy or regulatory powers that exist if a farmer wants to till too close to a stream, or till too much, or use too much fertilizer, or spread septic on a stream. It can be a problem. I agree.
What about the drainage superintendent?
The drainage superintendent would only be called in, as far as I know, where we have a municipal drain, and we've only got 3 or 4 municipal drains in the town of Mono. One of them, by the way, is, yeah, it's going to be cleaned out. I don't know if the drainage superintendent has the power to tell a farmer to keep, X number of meters away from the municipal drain. You probably know more about that than I do, but I mean, conservation authorities have the power to limit development within 30 meters of a provincially significant wetland. So if it's a provincially significant wetland, but that's only development, that's not stopping a farmer from plowing right up to the edge of the stream, or quite frankly, right into the stream. Andrew, you may know more about this than I do.
No, I don't want to, sorry. I think it's a large subject. There are regional individual superintendents, and there are collections of the drainage superintendents of Ontario that do proactive programming on fencing the cattle out of the streams, having a buffer to the stream, and that water's got to go somewhere. And eventually it might end up in something that's part of their mandate with respect to washing out a culvert under a main artery. So there are creative ways that drainage superintendents might become an ally, but it's like in Simcoe County, they're very proactive. Holland Marsh, they're very proactive, but I think it's very regional. It's an asset that you might want to make an inquiry about.
Thank you.
If I can, my family has been leasing out land for farming for over 70 years now. And we are very careful, and I know others are very careful to specify what can and cannot be done on that land. We, for instance, have said we don't want soybeans. Winter wheat's great, oats are great, but we have some control over what kind of farming goes on that 20-acre parcel. And I would encourage landowners to do the same thing. They don't always. Very frequently, they just have an agreement that their laneway gets plowed out frequently, and in return for that, the farmer can do anything they want. I think those days should be over.
I think the OFA also has programs, the Ontario Farming Association, because I know I have one of those signs on my property because we were careful about riparian setback around the creek, and the manure pile being set back away from running into the creek. And so most farmers, good farmers, will have an OFA certificate, and by doing that, there's programs that are run through different agencies to educate people on what goes on to those lands. But we do all know that mass production and massive yield are the priority to make massive money, and that impacts the bee population, and then that impacts us. And there's a statistic that I don't have off the top of my head, but after all the bees are dead, within about 7 days, the planet will be gone. Like, it's really, like, crazy, this number, but we do need to take care of those things, so.
I think it's provincial jurisdiction, not municipal, but I'll look at, I'm pretty sure, but I'll look it up and get back to you.
Hi, I'm Karen. Municipal drains are an interesting thing because they're not all equal. And so I do wonder if they're even needed if we allow significant riparian and buffer zones around where water drains to happen naturally, instead of channeling it, cleaning it out with big equipment that goes in and rips out everything. It's not selective, it's not fine surgery where they just go in and just do the drain, but they need zones on either side to actually clean the drain. So, I like Andrew's thing about, land use focusing on water first, because maybe the education then can be the importance of these zones to prevent having these drains. Maybe we need some, do we need all of them? The cost of cleaning out a drain, the cost to the climate, the cost of losing trees and natural vegetation like dogwood and willow, that's a huge cost because, you talk about bees. Land should not be a commodity, it should be a community. So, thank you.
I wanted to add a comment to your question. It's a good question with agricultural chemicals and fertilizers, et cetera. A couple of months ago, I attended the Hornings Mills Community Hall. There was a presentation by Gary Hunter, who is the hydrogeologist that did the study for the strata quarry, proposed strata, blast quarry, et cetera. And although the initiative of that meeting was to discuss aggregates and the figures were there for silica and other chemicals or possible contaminants that could come up from blasting. What also was included was the agricultural input into the Pine River and the Boyne River. And to look at those figures, it's an eye-opener. And you think, that's a big problem, and that's definitely a discussion for another day because it's a big issue that's not being addressed, and it does need to be.
Can you clarify a little bit more on that? You mean that it was brought up that not only as we as a quarry we're not going to do as much damage as the agriculture? Like how did they get how did the two? If you were there to hear about the why is it doing it? Could you just clarify a little bit more for me?
Okay. The report that he was doing had everything to do with the aggregate pit being converted to a quarry. So the statistics that he had presented were aggregate related, but also in those water tests were also included, what other components there were, and the agricultural chemicals and fertilizers were included there. So it was just happened to see it, and everybody went, "Wow, that's a huge problem."
Any other questions? Not yet. Dell hasn't spoken.
Del Bernardi, a Mono resident. We have started a new recycle program. How is that going? One of the things that hit me is that now we can recycle plastic bags. Are we going to rescind the bylaw that we have in the town of Mono, where we don't need that anymore because they're recyclable?
You mean where we can have plastic bags again because they're recyclable?
Yes.
Yes, for the groceries.
There's no plans to rescind that, but to be honest, Del, I don't think there's ever been a case of that bylaw being enforced because we would rely on someone coming to us to report it, and I don't think there's ever been a report of. If I'm saying as far as I know, there's no plans to rescind the bylaw that we have on the books that says in the retail business you can't use plastic bags.
Did we get any feedback from the
No, just
we
Dale, if I can, just on the recycling bins, this is an initiative of the Ontario government in conjunction with their provider of service, which is called Circular Materials. I call them circular arguments. And it is delivered to us by our county contractor, which is Green for Life. I've got a lot of calls, we've all got a lot of calls about the size of these bins. The mayor of Orangeville and myself joined forces to push back, and we were successful in two regards. Number one, the start date was going to be January 1st, which of course is absurd, and we got that pushed back, but we also got the option of a smaller bin. It's not that much smaller, but it's better than the really big bins. And we're still getting complaints about bins blowing over, and that's not even getting into the issue of the unsightliness of those bins at the end of people's driveways.
Oh, I was just going to make one more comment on, but they're here to stay. They're here to stay, and so we need to only put them out. I think the blowing over thing, it was remarkable, the number of large bins that had been blown over, because I think they've only got 3 or 4 little cans in the bottom of them, right? I think we need to wait to put them out until they're heavy enough, because they themselves get airborne easily.
Hi, Larissa Hayward. I'm a resident of Mono. I think we all have opinions on the size of the bins, and it's lovely that we can supposedly put more things in them. My question is, how much of it actually does get recycled, which may be beyond the scope of this meeting, but I've spoken to a number of people who are in the industry, and I think this is an issue that goes way beyond us. So no, I don't think we should bring back plastic bags. Is that I think a lot of it is being used by the plastics industry to convince us to use more plastic, because the production of plastic has exploded in the last decade, and yet I doubt very much that it's really being recycled. So, I mean, it's not, perhaps this isn't really a question, but maybe just something that we all need to think about, and maybe not get caught up in the excitement that, oh my gosh, I've got this great big bin and I can put even more things in it than I could before. They're not really getting diverted.
These are excellent. Can I make a comment? Those are excellent comments, and I personally only ever put out my little recycling bin every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Like I don't generate that much, so I'm certainly not going to put the big thing out very, very often. And you know, everybody's having to tuck the rural. We're having to figure out how do we tuck it away so that we can't see it. And of course, in our urban settings, it's like they're here, and this is the way it's going to be, because there's no you can put the recycle bin in your garage or put the car in the garage. Which are you going to do, right? So and I think what's going to come eventually will also be the big bin for garbage, because if the truck already has the ability to pick up, then you know to send out for the garbage to have 2 men doing it, it's wasteful, right? But you're absolutely right. This was brought about by the plastics companies, because that's the whole point of the government saying, well, we'll put it on to the producers. But still, one day, even if there is still stuff, because I think the list is bigger than it was before. That was the catch thing, as Dell's told us about the plastic bags. There's a few other things, too, that were, okay, great, I can put them in. They may not be recycled now. We know that. We've seen behind the CBC marketplace, behind the curtain there, right? We've seen that. But at least it's separated from garbage, so that when it's going to wherever, and that if one day somebody does spend the money on having the ability to process this plastic now, and because it's the sorting of it apparently is the difference, right, of the plastic, that I don't think it's that bad of an idea to continue to recycle, because I almost want to, with your comment, I almost want to say, yeah, you're right, just let's put it all in the garbage. And I don't, yeah, I think, well, right, yes.
The end of it, I think, is a bit of greenwashing. So I really think we need to carry on focusing on reducing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just in response, I just wanted to add a little anecdote to this. I totally agree with you. I am probably a bit older than you are, and I grew up in the Fraser Valley in British Columbia back in the late 1940s and early 50s. We didn't have garbage pickup. We had a 45-gallon drum out the back, and when we finished, because our food came, the butcher was wrapped in paper. Our produce came in a paper bag. We didn't have any plastic at all. Milk came in a glass bottle. We did have tin cans, and as kids, when my father had lit the fire, after the fire, we got to pick a few tin cans out of the 45-gallon drum, but we handled all our garbage on site just basically by burning it, and it was basically some paper, and maybe occasionally at Christmas a wooden box of oranges from Japan. We could burn the wood in there too, but we didn't have plastic.
Burning wasn't the answer, though, really.
Right. No, yeah, that's not good for the atmosphere, but that's okay. But I love your term, greenwashing. I like that. I don't know how many of you subscribe to Environmental Defense, but their most recent newsletter is about plastic. And MC Squared has done in the past, a few years ago, a whole session on plastic to educate people about how many balls of plastic they've got floating around in their bodies because they're ingesting it through everything. There are islands, massive islands of plastic in our oceans, killing our fish, going into the fish so that we eat it. So it's a huge issue. So where is it being recycled and what's happening with it? I don't know. Has anybody seen the movie WALL-E? Oh yeah. We'll be shipping it into space and plugging up the atmosphere up there with this stuff too. Anyway. Yeah, I know. It's a lesson for us to use less if we can.
Just one quick comment to add. And yeah, I think it's obvious to everybody that just because you put it in a recycling bin, it doesn't necessarily get recycled. There's a plant in Niagara Falls, New York, that Canada was shipping plastics to because they could incinerate it for power. So that's one way of getting rid of it. We've had containers of plastic show up in other countries. That's embarrassing. It's nationally, I think. But I do support the new program because it puts a cost to the producers of those. And I think the hope is that it leads to a reduction in the production of them if it becomes more costly. That may be naive on my part, but I hope. But I haven't heard anything about any new recycling initiatives to actually use the plastic bags that we put in our blue bin. And I just wondered if anybody else had.
Only seeing the list of the new things that you get to put in it, right? Which is the assumption. But you know that the increased cost to the producer really just means increased cost to the consumer, right?
You see those raspberries for $7? Just a quick one. Being a person who suffers from significant paranoia, I'm assuming that the big bins are moving towards bi-weekly or bi-monthly or once-a-month pickups. That's the question I had when I saw the propaganda come out at the beginning. One of the things that struck me is my 93-year-old neighbor who lives on a half-mile long driveway, and she could live in that thing instead of having to wheel it down to her. And so they did say that if you had that problem, they would send someone to pick it up at your house, which I assumed was a lie, which is, again, my paranoia slipping out. But I was just wondering if anyone had heard about that, because what these people are doing, or what I'm doing, and I'm not 93, fortunately, I will never make it. But anyway, it lives down at the end of my driveway. And I have a nice little place to tuck it in so people going over 60 on my road won't notice it. The people going the speed limit will see, oh, Don's got it up. I went down Main Street, Shelburne, the other day on garbage day, and it reminded me of Toronto. The only difference is my kids in Toronto have 4 of these. In Shelburne, they only have 1. But give us time. But this is I think you're all nodding. To think that Green for Life truck would go up my driveway to pick up my bin is beyond credibility, which was a lot of the other stuff I saw as well. So paranoia lives. I'm glad to hear that it's shared, and I'll pass this back.
And that's a good point, but they have politely offered that you can keep it at the end of your driveway, and then we'll be driving around here, and before no time, there'll be more blue boxes than trees.
Yeah, if I can, I think it's an apocryphal tale that they'll drive up your driveway. I've heard that, by the way. You're absolutely right. And that may have been an accommodation under the old system that was presumed to continue under the new system. As far as I know, the frequency of pickup remains the same in Dufferin. It has not in other jurisdictions such as Simcoe County, where they've gone back to the biweekly as opposed to weekly. But you know, as far as we're concerned, it's probably going to go out once every 3 weeks, and heavy enough that it won't blow over.
My guess is we'll be down to 2 weeks.
Knut, the last comment.
Well, I think personally that as long as countries are willing to start wars to maintain the oil industry, I think we are dreaming for the short term. In the meantime, paranoia continues.
Share the disease, obviously.
Well, I think we're coming to a natural conclusion. I first wanted to thank everyone for coming out and participating and asking some good questions. I thought we had some wonderful dialogue. I want to thank the members of council for coming up here, and I want to thank staff for taking time out of their weekend to be here. I have one last comment that our special speaker would like to make.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody here. I attend a lot of council meetings. The ones in Caledon go to 1 a.m., but I leave at 9:30. I've never seen this kind of a respectful dialogue. Normally people are angry as bees' nest because something hasn't been done. And I just want to congratulate you all for the community relations that you have. It's really extraordinary. Thank you very much.
Dismissed.
And just on behalf of council, I'd like to thank everyone who came out on a Saturday morning. We love these town hall meetings, and this will not be the last one that we hold. Thank you very much.